Hi, Mușata, and thank you so much for joining today. Let's begin with your landmark article, Motherhood Penalty, right?
Yeah.
What is it that was your tipping point to write that article?
Thank you so much for having me here today, Meeta. It's an absolute pleasure. So I do a lot of writing actually around female empowerment, and the article that I wrote on the motherhood penalty was actually one of my very first ones, and I still it still holds a very dear place in my heart. So first of all, I feel that I need to explain what the motherhood penalty is.
Please.
Everyone obviously knows about the gender gap, right? And according to the World Economic Forum, it's going to take us another 135 years to actually close the gender gap. That's a very long time to wait. But what not everyone's talking about or knows about is the fact that the motherhood penalty, which refers to the difference in wages, or let's say the wage gap between working moms and women who are not working, or women who don't have kids, who are working but don't have kids, or men who are working, whether they're dads or not, is actually a lot higher than the gender gap itself. So the motherhood penalty refers to the fact that a woman's earnings over her lifetime will actually be decreasing from the moment she has a child, and they keep decreasing with the number of children that she has.
That's very interesting that it decreases further with the number of children she has.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So according to research and stats, every child costs you about a 6% decrease in your earnings, and every additional child is between 6 to 8% of your earnings, of your lifetime earnings. And for women who actually dare to take a career break of, let's say, 1 year, just a 1 year career break can lead to a decrease in lifetime earnings of about 40%. So these are the stats in the US and in Europe, and I believe they're quite alarming.
Yes, absolutely.
And when I was doing this research for my book, because I'm writing a book about working motherhood, I was quite alarmed by these stats, and that's when I decided to write an article about it. I felt that, yes, everyone talks about the gender gap. We need to close it. We certainly are working towards that, as women have more opportunities within the workforce right now compared to tens of years ago. However, we're not talking enough about the motherhood penalty. And it's not just about a decrease in wages. That's actually experienced throughout the working life of a mother. Why? Because of missed opportunities for promotion, because working moms tend to be perceived, unfortunately, by leadership within corporate as less committed to their jobs. So missed opportunities for promotion, career breaks which result in less earnings overall compared to their male peers, and lack of flexibility as well.
So is that a perception or a reality?
That is a reality. Yeah.
It is.
So the stats have shown it. That's a reality. In fact, what I found quite ironic is that working fathers tend to experience a fatherhood bonus from the moment they have a child.
Okay.
So the statistics have shown that man's income will actually increase from anything between 8 to 20% from the moment he has kids. Why? Because he is perceived at work as more committed, because he's got a family, he's got children to provide for, and he's therefore more committed to his job, more motivated probably to get a promotion. And for women, it works the other way around. So I think it's very important to talk about the motherhood penalty, and to try our best to actually eradicate it by changing perceptions within the corporate world, the entrepreneurial world as well, and by raising more awareness, really, and putting ourselves forward for the roles that we want, for the promotions that we want, on our terms.
That's true. So you said that should change, right? And we as women are instrumental in changing that. How do you think we can do that?
So there are several ways in which I think we can do that. I think first of all, we need to stop trying to fit into spaces that were not built for us in the first place, right? We need to raise more awareness, and we need to support each other more. So building a community of women, or let's say working mothers, at work and outside of work, that can help women to actually gain the confidence by sharing similar experiences with other women and actually talking about those experiences. having more confidence to put yourself forward, whether it's for a particular project or extra work or a promotion, that's very important as well. And certainly I feel that women have not done that enough to date. That is changing for sure. But women have always felt that, if they took a career break, and I certainly felt that way, before myself, once I became a mom, that we're probably not due the promotion, that we wanted or that was promised to us, because we've just had, a maternity leave of X amount of months, or because we've taken a career break. So I feel that self-perception and self-permission is very, very important here. We have sought the permission of others for too long. We need to to basically seek our own self-permission, to actually sell ourselves for the worth that we actually provide.
I love that. Can we ring the bell on this one, right? Absolutely. So self-permission, right? And yes, we are worth it. And who else to promote ourselves than we ourselves? So absolutely, so well said, Mușata. So tell me, you've been in high stake boardrooms, and you've kind of been a founder of a tech startup.
Yeah.
How was the perception changed for you once you became a mother?
I definitely felt a change instantly.
Okay.
And I feel that change has followed me since. And it's the same for many women that I've spoken with, whether in very senior positions or even as business owners. The change was mostly in mindset and how I was looked at, at work after becoming a mom. When I was pregnant with my first child, actually, I experienced quite a tough phase of maternity discrimination or pregnancy discrimination at the time. I was leading the European sales team for a tech company, for a tech startup. I had done really well. I had been with this company for over a couple of years. And I announced my pregnancy. In the meantime, I got married, I got pregnant, and I announced my pregnancy at about 5 months. Now, up until that point, I was actually jet-setting around Europe, and not only, actually internationally as well, visiting clients and partners, growing the business for the company abroad. And from the moment that I announced my pregnancy, the perception was that I would not be able to actually travel anymore as much as before, which of course was true for a short period of time. But I felt that perception was instantly a perception for the long term, which was not necessarily true. I probably would have wanted to travel, after returning from maternity leave, probably not as much as I did before, but you can't assume that a woman won't want to do the same job or have the same ambition, right? So it's almost as though the perception of my ambition decreased without me actually being asked about it, right?
Wow.
And I feel that happens in a lot of corporate workplaces. I was, a few days after announcing my pregnancy, I was offered an administrative role that was well below my experience, my capabilities, and that really hit me like a tornado.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. So,
and how did it make you feel?
Honestly, it broke me a little bit on the inside. I was very, very shaken by that decision. Why? First of all, because it was not me who asked for something like that, and I was not even asked about how would I feel about it. How do I actually want to grow within my career at the company? I was essentially not asked about anything at all. Something was decided about me and for me without, my contribution, right? So it felt that I had suddenly lost the power that I had until that point. And that can be quite stressful, especially for a new mom.
Absolutely.
And that shadow really followed me for a long time, I must admit, but motherhood brought a new wave of strength, really, Once I became a mom, I felt much stronger than before, in the sense that I would not take any bad, behavior from anyone anymore. I learned how to stand my ground. And I was younger at the time, I feel that for a lot of us, that strength and maturity comes with time, it comes with experience. It certainly comes with, good and bad things that happen to us, right? But it changed my perception on success forever, right? So many of us, when we're young, we chase the type of success that comes in titles and materialistic pursuits and bonuses and recognition from your peers or from your industry. And for me, motherhood really, really redefined success, the notion of success, to mean less materialistic things. Yes, we need those because we need to provide for our families, but success to me now is more about peace, having a healthy family, being at peace with myself, standing my ground, and fighting for what I believe in, but also doing work that actually brings value to me and to the other people that I help in my work.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that, once you became a mother, those things came to you. You automatically changed your thinking and your definition of success. What was the key reason to do that? Was it forced upon you in a way because, the world is looking at me differently and I need to react or respond to that? Or was it something more deeper than that?
I think it was a mix of both. We are all prone to, constantly thinking about how we are perceived by the rest of the world, right? And we will care about that, right? We will always care about that to some extent because we are part of a society. We follow certain rules. We want to be seen positively among our communities. So certainly it came from how perceptions about me changed once I became a mother. I felt that I had to fight harder to get to where I wanted to get. I felt that I had to work harder, work smarter as well, prove my worth tenfold compared to my peers because I was a mother. And if I dared to ask for any flexibility or extra time off because my kids were sick or there was some family emergency, I felt that, guilt in a way that, perhaps I'm asking for too much. But I said to myself, hang on, actually, we need to normalize motherhood, fatherhood as well in the workplace to not have to feel guilty about, asking for flexibility and shifting the way that you work so that it benefits you as a person as well.
That's lovely.
And that's why flexibility is so important. But what shifted within me as well was, I think, my own perception of myself and of corporate workplaces. I knew that they're not perfect, that they need to change. And I understood that no one actually will care about us deeply unless we care deeply about ourselves.
So you said something about guilty, right? You said you felt guilty and that's the reason you wanted to work harder, you wanted to work smarter. Do you think women should feel guilty about motherhood?
I no longer think that way. So
what made you change that thought?
Well, let's just say I was younger when I had my first child, and so I was still building myself up from some of the bad experiences that I had that I've talked about earlier with maternity discrimination, and I was building myself up. So guilt was a part of it. I'm actually thankful for it now because once I had my second child, something within me shifted even more. It's like a lioness that had awakened to roar louder and bolder, right? And I think that's really what motherhood does to us.
Yes.
We become braver because we have to fight for the good, for our children, the good of our children, for their rights and for our own as well. So that shift was even stronger when I had my second child, and I actually decide. I think it's a decision, I think the same about happiness, right? You can decide every day to be happy about and grateful for what you have, right? Yeah. Or you can feel miserable about the things that you don't have, and that will actually influence how you spend your day, how you feel that day, or even that week or that month, right? So happiness to me is the choice, and so was the feeling of no longer feeling guilty, right? I just decided I can no longer feel guilty about A, B, C, D, E. What I can do is actually, show my work, focus on results rather than, time spent on the clock in offices, pretending to be productive, which is what a lot of people do. I think for working moms, actually, productivity is something that's our superpower. Why? Because we don't have enough hours in the day. We have to constantly divide ourselves between work and our family responsibilities. Those of our kids, our partners, communities we serve, and that can feel very, very overwhelming.
That's true.
But it's our choice to decide to not feel guilty about it, right? And actually be present in each sphere of our life, right?
So I'd like to step back a little. When you said you faced motherhood discrimination, how did you respond to that? And that's something which I think every woman should really understand of when she is faced with a similar situation. What is the best response to that? And how did you respond to it? And what do you think today would your response be different? And what would it be?
Well, so it's a tough question, actually. It brings back a lot of emotions. When I experienced maternity discrimination, I think, what I didn't do straight away, which I should have done, I believe now, was taking the time to reflect, right? Rather than respond instantly, right?
So how did you respond at that time?
I have to admit I was quite emotional, so it was a complete shock for me. So I felt quite emotional in the moment, and I just, stepped out, left the office, left for the day. I said I need to think about this, right? And I was allowed to leave for the day. If this were to happen to me now, I would certainly, have a debate, have a conversation, or maybe take a 1 or 2 hour break for self-reflection, after which I would have a conversation, because in that moment, and I think anyone would feel humiliated, right? Of course. If that were to happen to me now, I wouldn't necessarily feel humiliated. I would feel a lot more angered and frustrated straight away before even experiencing any humiliation, because I know my worth now. I have lived through it. I have built it. I have worked hard to build it and to rebuild myself after the ups and downs, that life has thrown at me. And everyone's got their, burden to carry, right? And everyone's is different, so we can't really compare whose is tougher, whose is harder to carry, and whose is easier. But we each have our, let's say, burdens. So for me, right now, what I would advise women to do in situations like these is to actually take time to self-reflect, but also stand your ground, have a debate, have an honest human-to-human conversation.
And what should you say in that?
Ask for the reasons behind the decision, and don't focus on emotions, but actually focus on data, focus on what's documented, right? And something that I've learned from that experience, which I would definitely advise women to do, is document your progress. Document your mishaps as well, right? Document the mistakes, document the good and the bad in each role, in each job or role that you're performing within any corporate, right? You have to keep a written trail of your performance, of your feedback, the good and the bad, because at the time I didn't necessarily have that, and the company then relied on made-up reasons to explain themselves for something that was simply unexplainable and blatantly illegal. So what I would advise women to do is know your worth, but document your worth as well.
Very important. So let's click on that one again. Right? Again, know your worth. And not only just know it, document it, right? Very important thing to do is document it. And absolutely. I think that is a golden set of rules that you are talking about, right? That you must document it. That's beautiful.
And not just in case something bad happens. I wanted to say that actually documenting your performance and your wins, the good and the bad, actually can help with negotiating salary increases, negotiating promotions. We haven't done that enough. Companies have their formal performance reviews, of course. But ourselves, we don't take notes, right? Every time that ex-manager said, well done on that project, verbally or in an email, document it, right? Because you need to build your arsenal of weapons to then promote yourself within the organization,
So
be it to defend yourself or to promote yourself for a further higher position.
should you defend yourself?
We have to sometimes, yeah. I feel that, everyone makes mistakes, and, I've certainly made mistakes in my career. We all learn. And the key difference is having a work environment that actually welcomes human authenticity, right? Because if we are being honest and authentic, we all make mistakes, right? And we sometimes bring our good selves to work, and we sometimes bring our bad selves to work. And I think it's so important now to actually bring our whole selves to work and have human-to-human conversations with our management, especially now in the age of AI. Everyone's texting each other now with with the help of ChatGPT. I really find it quite ludicrous. We have to ensure that ourselves as people, we can still talk with each other, honestly, and from an individual perspective, not from something that's narrated after you input a prompt, right? Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think the human element in corporate interactions as well as personal will be of utmost importance in the new, let's say, in the new way of working in the future.
That's so true. But explain to me that, once you know that you are pregnant and now you are going to become a mother,
Yeah.
and your organization now tells you that, oh, you will not be so productive, or you will not be able to stay for long hours, or whatever their reasons
Yeah.
are. To some extent it's true,
Yeah.
right? Because obviously there is going to be a change in the way we are going to show up,
Yeah.
right? How do you think it plays in your own self when you're defending yourself or advocating for yourself?
So I think we have to be honest with ourselves as mothers, and we have to be honest with our workplaces as well, right? And indeed, we will have mothers who actually want to step out and have less responsibility in their work.
True.
because of having a child, or I actually want to say thanks to having a child, because raising a child is the hardest work that you can ever do. And I have huge admiration for stay-at-home moms or women who take career breaks and actually have the guts to do that,
True.
because I did not have the bravery to actually take a career break with any of my pregnancies. I used to look at career breaks as something very taboo, like that will affect my career, and I was scared to do that. I no longer think that way. I mean, I could take a break now if I wanted to, because I'm confident in my abilities, right? But I think that all of us women need to get to that point. And I'm still learning. I'm not perfect at all. I'm still learning in terms of confidence, in terms of how to present myself and how to fight for myself. But let's say you're pregnant or you've just become a mom. You have to be honest with yourself in terms of how much do you actually want to give to your work environment, and be honest with your management about that. And you may want to keep the same responsibilities, or even take further responsibilities later on once, let's say, your child is older. You have to be honest about that with yourself and with your management. And really, it's a decision that you have to make, right?
But does financial independence and the fact that you may not continue to be financially independent yourself if you leave your job play a crucial role in this decision? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think it absolutely plays a crucial role, and that's really, I think that's one of the main reasons why some women feel that they cannot take a very long maternity leave or a career break, because they have to work to help provide for their families, and in that case, again, what they can do better is actually not necessarily work harder, but work smarter. Have an honest conversation with their employer about how long it takes them to do a specific task. I feel that as mothers, we actually become more productive with our time. We waste less time on, coffee breaks and just being in the office for the sake of it. We actually focus on getting the job done, and we are very, very productive, because any extra minute that we get to spend with our loved ones at home and be there for our kids at bath time or bedtime is of crucial importance to us. So we by default become a lot more productive at our jobs. I felt that way suddenly, I became so much more productive after being a mom, not because my mind was always racing into different directions, but because you have to learn to compartmentalize, right?
Yes.
When you're at work, you focus solely on your work.
Yeah.
You don't look at, the pictures that the nanny sent you of the kids or that your husband shared, unless it's an emergency, of course. And yes, you can look at those in your breaks. I don't want to be too harsh. But when you're present with your children, you have to be present with your children. You won't be checking work email or responding to work email. And that's why flexibility is so important, right? I found as a working mom within corporate that those times when I had the flexibility, I worked harder and better than ever before.
So, but you've talked about productivity, working harder, working smarter. Is it also perceived by others? Because I know I have been through a similar journey where I definitely felt that I was not, and those were days when WhatsApp and all were not there. There wasn't, those were initial days. Of course, I'm much older. Yeah. So in those days also, when I was working from home, I realized that my productivity was far higher, and the amount of work I was generating in a day was much, much more as compared to what I would have done when I was in office.
Yeah.
But is it perceived the same way? I mean, you're working from home, you have your kids to manage, you don't even have time. I mean, how do you think you're going to prove to us that you are more productive? How do you justify that?
That's really where the gap lies.
Yeah.
And that's something that we still need to work hard to change, is the mindset, right? The deeply ingrained traditional mindset that a lot of today's leaders still have, that, presence in the office and clocking in the hours that they believe you should be there actually equates with productivity and getting the job done. It doesn't really. It doesn't. So leadership needs to change to actually look at outcomes and results rather than the time spent on any specific task or project, right? So we need to shift the working culture and leadership's mindset to actually move towards a results-driven model, right? So what are the results that this person has brought? Has she met her deadlines? Has she closed, the deals or the projects that she was working on that she promised to close? And if not, why not, right? Because the reason will not always be what they think it is.
True.
Oh, she was too busy with the kids, or we allowed her to work from home 3 days a week, and therefore, the performance is suffering.
And I guess that's the place documentation works, where you have something to prove that here it is, this is the result, this is the outcome of what I did.
Yeah.
So true.
That's why documentation is so important, but not just that. I think voicing the work that we have done is so important, extremely important. So if you're working from home for a day or a number of particular days, or constantly working remotely, you have to voice the results that you've achieved, right? You have to vouch for yourself, because no one else will do that. Don't wait until the end of the month or until the performance review. Have regular check-ins and updates with your management where you show your worth. I have worked on this, I have achieved this, XYZ.
I love that.
And sort of this is what I've done this week. Not in a way that you're explaining every day what you're working on. God, no, because everyone hates micromanagement, and I've had that before in my career, and it works counterproductively to the role to any role that you do. But having those moments of reflection, documenting things, and actually sharing those with your managers.
So what you just said was that the important thing you said was have a voice.
Exactly.
Right? It's not about just documenting, but also have the clarity and the conviction to go and talk about yourself. And I think that is something, again, a lot of women shy away from.
Yeah.
Right? Traditionally, women are told to be quiet, to stay silent, or let the work speak for itself.
Yeah.
But I think what is very, very important, and let's click on this one too, that yes, please use your voice to talk about yourself, because nobody else will. So once you've documented the stuff, be sure that you have a conversation with the manager and bring your whatever you've done beautifully. So 100%.
Absolutely, No one else will do that, right?
Nobody
our peers won't do it, and our managers may not even be thinking about that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a performance review, or the company actually looking at, let's say letting go of some people, they won't you won't be on top of their mind unless you have been on top of their mind
So well
in
said.
a positive way. Right?
Absolutely.
So I believe that's of utmost importance for women. We need to talk more about our achievements unapologetically and not feel bad about it, because look, men actually do it all the time, right? I've achieved this, I succeeded at that, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's
100%.
good that they do that well.
Of course.
But
And we
us
should
women,
learn from
we've
that,
stayed
right?
in the shadows.
Yes.
Oh, my work will speak for itself,
Yes.
like you
Yeah.
said, It doesn't anymore. And certainly not in today's world where everyone relies on more technology and AI to actually perform their tasks.
Absolutely.
What will make a difference is the human element, the boldness, the authenticity, and showing that you are capable of, what you do, that you can succeed, that you're a core member of the team, and you have to vouch for yourself all the time.
So it's a self-belief too, right? You believe in yourself. I think the first thing is when we keep wanting external validation, we don't believe in ourselves. So I think, yes, very, very true.
Yeah.
So you've worked with Goldman Sachs, you worked with tech companies. You said that success to you was now looking totally different from, what it was. How did this transpire once you left your job?
So I actually stepped out of a corporate career of over 12 years a year ago, and I decided to focus on work that's valuable to me, right? Why? Because I wanted more flexibility. I wanted to be in control of my time, but I also felt that there was a gap in a way within me that I wanted to fill. I wanted to try to work on my dream, and I felt that I don't want to wait until another 10 years time until I'm 50 or 60 and then look back and think, oh, I should have really tried to do that before. And I just made a decision to essentially step out of corporate and start working towards what I enjoy. I really enjoy working with startup founders, in particular female founders. So right now I consult founders on go-to-market strategy, partnerships. I help them prepare for investor readiness or pitching to investors. And it's work that's so much more deep and enjoyable, and actually provides human value and business value to the founders that I work with. And I've noticed throughout my journey, so I actually consult with several startup incubators, right? So I initially started my, let's say, independent consulting journey really by working with all sorts of founders across tech and fintech, health tech and ed tech as well. And it was really a mix of men and women. But I noticed that there are very few women who actually make it into incubator and accelerator programs. Very few female founders make
What's
it.
the reason?
The stats are less than 10% of participating founders in those programs are women.
So what's the reason you think that women are behind in this whole race for fun?
So it's not to do with ability. I would say it's to do with investor bias, and also it's really to do as well with the way that they present themselves or put themselves forward. And I'm not being critical now. I want to actually explain that. Women are perfectionists, and that actually works against us. So I've met many brilliant female founders who are working on their product or solution to bring it to market, to bring it in front of investors, and they want to make their product or their solution absolutely perfect before it's even shared with anyone. I've worked with male founders, and I've seen that half of them will go in front of investors with half of a product, or half of an idea, and present it so boldly, so confidently that they will get the interest, the connections, the networks, the investment, And I've noticed a gap there. I thought, okay, well, these female founders are brilliant, but they clearly are missing a point here. You can't wait until your product, your solution is perfect to bring it to market. Yes, of course, it has to be good. It has to solve a problem. If you can show that and back it up with the numbers, it doesn't have to be fully ready. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be half ready, but you have to bring it out into the world to then get the right networking connections that you need, the right partnerships, and the right investors on board.
But do you think it's a chicken and egg story? In the sense that, the women start becoming perfectionists because there is an investor bias.
Yeah.
And because they don't get funding, they kind of tend to be more critical about themselves, and because of that, how do you break that? And I also want you to talk a little bit about what is this investor bias?
Yeah.
I mean, why is it happening, and what is it that makes women less suitable in the eyes of the investor as compared to a man coming for the same product or pitching the same thing?
Yeah. So investor bias is really prevalent. So first of all, we need to look at the fact that less than 2% of VC capital globally goes to female founders. Less than 2%.
Less than 2.
Yeah.
That's
so that's
abysmally low.
That's extremely low. In the region, I think the stats are around the same, around 2%, right? That's extremely low. And that just shows that there is some sort of investor bias, right? And I've spoken to many founders who have experienced investor bias, actually. A good friend of mine who's a female founder of a health tech company and a mother of 4, she certainly saw investor bias firsthand. She went to pitch to investors with a toddler and being 8 months pregnant. I mean, which is so courageous, right?
It is so true.
And I've met other women actually who, pitch to investors after having kids or before having kids or even being pregnant. And I think that's really courageous, but we have to do it. If men can build businesses regardless of whether they're single, married, or whether they're a dad or not, women should be able to as well. Now, investor bias comes in when investors perceive that a woman may have other growth priorities other than her business, right? So if you're of childbearing age, they may think, okay, you're starting a business, but if you're married, you may want to have kids soon, right? And actually that bias exists within hiring and corporate as well.
But it takes two to tango, right? A man is equally invested in a relationship as a woman is, right?
Exactly.
So why is that bias so prevalent still, and how can we break that as women?
So I think it's prevalent because, in my honest opinion, it's because fatherhood is not normalized. Everyone talks about motherhood, everyone talks about working moms and how hard it is to be a working mom. And yes, it's really hard. Why is no one talking about working dads, right? It's not even a term that's used anywhere at all. A man is a man. He has kids, he doesn't have kids. It really doesn't matter whether he participates in family life equally or not. Nobody's asking, right? Nobody actually cares about that. So I feel that we need to normalize both motherhood and fatherhood and actually eradicate the whole working mom term. I think we need to talk about it. We need to use this term, but I actually dislike it because it's old-fashioned, right? We need to talk about working parents, especially as more men have started, equally sharing the burden of childcare, household duties. I certainly know my husband has been amazing at sharing the burden with me, and not everyone is. I agree, and that will differ, depending on culture and financial circumstances, etc. But more men have stepped up, right? More men have stepped up in the kitchen, but they haven't stepped up at work to actually say, I'm a working father and I need to, share the load. So I need to pick up my kids from school on this and this days, and I need to take the kids to the doctor because my wife's away on a business trip, right? Those discussions don't happen enough within workplaces, and they certainly don't happen enough within the startup world as well. And therefore, biases still exist, both in corporate and investor bias, right? Because the woman still is by default, the default parent. She is by default the parent that will take care of emergencies, doctor appointments, and actually the whole mental load that comes with managing a family. I talk in my book a lot about the mental load.
Do tell us a little bit more about that.
It's I feel that the mental load actually is really the highest pressure experienced by mothers. Everyone talks about household responsibilities. We can outsource some of those. Certainly those of us living in this region, we outsource them quite a lot. But the mental load refers to the never-ending mental lists that we keep in our head in terms of everything we need to prepare and everything that we need to prepare for our kids, for our partners, for our family, for ourselves, and that runs from school dress-up days to PTC meetings to doctor appointments and which kid has which allergy, and coordinating
Yes,
with
yes,
venues and
absolutely,
birthday parties
yes,
and our
true,
parents, arranging the whole agenda and the schedule and the travel for the whole family, packing the whole family before you go on holiday. I'm going to have to do that tomorrow.
I can imagine.
I'm not saying that men don't think about those things, but they won't think about them unless you tell them, okay, my
Yes.
darling, I need help with organizing XYZ. Let's, split this list in two. You do this, I do that, right? So it's always us mothers that actually bear the
Yes.
mental load. And it's not talked about enough in
How do you
society.
do that? How do you now see that men take equal responsibility of the mental load, not the physical?
Yeah.
Physical fare they're taking.
Yeah.
But how do they take more responsibility towards the mental load? What do you think you can do towards that?
So I think what we can do is use calendars very smartly and to-do lists, right? So
Yes.
for me, if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen, right? So, and it's all about communication, right? So I think, as a couple, or let's say even if you're a single mom and you don't have a partner, right? But you have someone else to help you, maybe, someone you've hired to help you. It's all about delegating and delegating with intent and with clarity and open communication. And we need to delegate more because as women, we tend to take everything upon ourselves. Why? Because we always think, we'll do it better.
True.
But actually, even if someone else won't do it the same way as us, it's just as good, right? If the kids are fed, they're dressed, it doesn't matter that they're wearing an Elton John outfit by mistake,
Yes.
they're happy, they're alive and dressed and fed, okay, off they go, right?
True.
So it's about learning to let go and delegating smartly.
I love it, and I'm going to
Yeah.
obviously ring the bell on that one again. Yes, because we need to let go, right? We need to let go and we need to delegate. So important, because you're so right when you said that women are perfectionists.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they don't feel comfortable delegating, and they feel that they can do a better job.
Yeah.
And it's so important to delegate, and definitely that's the way. Yeah.
I believe it's all connected,
Yeah.
Delegating, talking more openly about parenthood in general.
Absolutely.
That will lead to fatherhood and motherhood being perceived as equal
Yes.
in the workplace.
Yes.
And I believe that we will never reach gender equality unless we step up together, men and women, to talk about these topics together. I go to so many women's events where these topics are discussed and the audience is full
It's
of
only women,
It's
right?
only women,
Yes,
right.
I've seen that
so
too.
we need more
Yes.
men to actually participate.
How do we do
in
that?
these
How do we do
conversations.
that? How do we get men into this conversation?
I think by asking them to participate, first of all, by asking them to participate, but also by ensuring that they become comfortable speaking about these topics as well at work, and normalizing their duties outside of work, bringing their home persona or, dad persona to work with them, right?
True.
Because we bring our mother persona to work. We say, okay, well, I'm a mother, I have one child or two kids or a number of kids, and I have to deal with this and this and that. And we talk openly about it. I think before it used to be more taboo, but now we talk more openly about it. Men don't necessarily do that. So, if we don't normalize fatherhood, and that should really come with equal paternity leave as well. But that's a whole different topic. If we get into that, it's
True, but I mean, I would want you to talk a little bit about the policy initiatives that, from a government perspective, or from an organization's perspective, that should happen for this to become more equal.
Yeah. Really, if I were within government and working on policies, to actually make people's lives better and parents' lives better, the first thing that I would do is actually implementing equal paternity leave and maternity leave. And not necessarily making it optional, right? I think some countries have adopted an equal paternity leave, some of the Scandinavian countries, and that's great, but it's still optional. If we actually make it a norm, so same as when you become a mom, you have let's say a minimum of 3 months or 6 months that you can take for maternity leave, we should give the same to the fathers, right? And that will ensure...
It's compulsory, right?
If we make it compulsory, it will
Yes.
simply ensure that there is more job security, both for men and for women.
So well said, yes.
Secondly, that fatherhood and motherhood will be on an equal pedestal. They will be normalized as working parenthood.
Yeah.
and the world will understand that actually it takes two parents to raise a child. Fathers can help. There's a lot that they can do, and it's okay if they take the paternity leave later, not straight away in the newborn phase.
True.
They can take it later and still benefit from spending time with their children and understanding the humongous amount of work that it actually takes to raise a family, and that would allow women to then come back to work feeling confident that they are on an equal foot. I actually strongly believe that until we normalize fatherhood and motherhood as equal, and have an equal amount of paternity leave, until we do that, we are simply putting band-aids on structural inequality. It will always be there unless we actually, really get to that point where men and women have similar experiences with parenting.
You are so bang on that. So from a HR's perspective, a corporate HR's perspective, what can they do differently for working women so that this disparity kind of goes away, or at least lessens?
Yeah. So I think something that can be done differently is for women to actually participate more in HR policies that are designed, in every company they work for, right? So if as a woman you go to HR and you say, if you're working on some policies, could we make sure that we amend ABC to make it easier, for employees like me, to come back from maternity leave, or, ensure that they come back to the same role, to the same job, and not to lesser responsibility or lesser income. So the participation of women in designing these policies within their companies, I think that's really important. And obviously, you'd probably have to speak to your management about it as well, that you intend to participate in that. But creating a community as well of working parents within each company, I think that's important as well. If you grow your little bubble of working parents, moms and dads as well, and speak openly about these topics to HR, that can bring more awareness and more empathy within the organization to ensure that working parents are treated well. And finally,
do you think support system and caregiving for the kids, right? Of course, here we are luckier because we do have the opportunity to have a nanny and delegate caregiving. But what about working parents, where they don't have that opportunity? What's the kind of ecosystem that should be created for kids to thrive and grow while the parents are comfortably working? What do you think on that front?
So obviously I think for larger corporations that can actually help in terms of organizing childcare on their premises. True. And I've seen a few corporations like that. I think doing that makes a huge difference, a huge difference, because you can be coming to work with your child, you drop him at the daycare, that's organized on the premises, and then you pick them up after work, and you can even visit them during breaks, right? So that really would be the ideal scenario.
Of course.
Now, of course, that means certain infrastructure and investment on behalf of corporates, but there are so many large corporates that could do that and don't do that yet. And yes, sure, there are smaller businesses or startups that may not be able to do that, and that's understandable, but larger corporations need to lead by example, right?
True. And from a policy perspective also, if such ecosystems are created where kids can happily be there with parents working, and that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps that push has to come from the government as well. If the government actually mandates childcare as one of the benefits that need to be offered as part of a job, right? That would solve a lot of issues for working parents.
That's true.
And if, let's say, daycare on the premises is not possible, then a subsidy towards childcare would certainly help. I find that a lot of my friends in the UK who have become mothers have felt that childcare actually takes up to 70% of their salary away. So some of them have actually taken a career break because they were spending all of their income on on childcare. And it just didn't make sense to be working. And that's really sad, actually, because it just perpetuates, this gender inequality. It perpetuates the motherhood penalty as well. The longer the career break you take, the less income you're going to achieve throughout your lifetime earnings. So policies to subsidize childcare that come from government, policies for larger corporates to accommodate for that, and even issue this as a perk, as a benefit, as a job benefit, the same way that we have health insurance, right?
True.
That would solve a major problem for working parents, and it would ensure more equality as well in society.
So well said. So tell me, complete the sentence for me. A woman who knows her worth never
shrinks herself into spaces that were not built for her in the first place.
How
She'll create
lovely.
her own space.
How lovely. How lovely. Beautiful. And what is it for you in the coming future?
So for me, I'm very passionate about bringing more women into business as business owners, as founders. And I'll tell you why. I don't think that we can actually eradicate inequality and the gender gap until we have more women running companies. Leading companies, running their own companies, right? And that's why I'm so invested and passionate about working with female founders to help them bring their businesses live into the world. Because if women lead, we will, bring a new era in leadership as is, right? We'll bring more authenticity, vulnerability, empathy, more understanding in terms of, how corporate culture should be run and what needs to change to actually accommodate it for everyone, right? Regardless of whether you're a working parent or not. It's about diversity and inclusion, and us women, especially working moms, we are so much better at it, right? So my next project that I'm currently working on is actually, and I really hope that it comes to life, but I'm working towards building a startup accelerator for female founders only.
Nice.
It means strictly for female founders.
Nice.
And not much. There are not many accelerators or startup incubators like that in the region. There are a few, yes. There are a few,
yes.
But I find that those that are active, they focus a lot on tech, sort of women in tech or women in AI, which I think is incredible. But I'd like to open the doors to female founders from all industries, right? Whether you're building the next AI hype and super tech startup, or you're building, a baking business, a bakery, or a beauty product, right? You should have the same opportunity to actually introduce your product to market and to investors, right? And I believe in equal opportunity, right? So I'm working towards building something like that. I've got a few partnerships signed up for this project. I'm very much at the beginning, so I'm really hoping that in the next few months it's actually going to come to life. It's a long dream of mine.
That's excellent.
And if that happens, I believe that it will just bring better examples into the world in terms of how things can be done to facilitate bringing women in business, right? And bring more women to the table. I want to bring women who will actually build their own table.
I love that, right? Build your own table.
Yeah.
So well said. Yes. If you don't have a seat at the table, get your own table.
Exactly. Yeah. And find the allies, allies, the partners and the sponsors that will actually, support you and cheer you on. And I believe that it's possible. With the way the world is changing, I believe that it is possible. It takes hard work and a lot of determination, and it takes confidence. But that's something that I'm working with female founders on a lot. Sure. The emotional, the confidence side of the puzzle. That is so important. We need to, we need to speak for ourselves more boldly, more courageously, and lead unapologetically. We no longer need to say sorry for being too little or too much. We just need to lead the way that we want to lead.
Absolutely. And what about your book? When is that releasing?
So my book is going to be called The Mother Shift. And that really relates to the whole journey of working motherhood, identity, and redefining success. And it's coming out in October.
Okay.
So I'm actually submitting the final manuscript at the end of this month. So I've been working on the final edits. I'm very, very excited. And I'm so thankful actually to the several women who have actually participated in bringing this book to life, because I'll be featuring some case studies of women who have blended motherhood and a career successfully. And their support has been what's kept me going, actually, in terms of bringing this book to life.
How lovely. Good luck to you on
Thank
that
you so
one. And I'm
much.
sure I'm going to read that too. And I'm sure more
Absolutely.
women will.
I can't wait to share it with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for your time today.